Hey everyone, welcome back to Being with Cari on the Ultimate Coach podcast. My guest today is a dear friend of mine, somebody I'm so excited for you guys to hear from. It's Ben Welch. Ben, thanks for being on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm excited. Like I said, you and I have known each other a while, and we've had some really great conversations about being, what being is, what it means to us, what it can mean. I just want to start right there. What is being for you? If you can put it in the simplest terms.
Well, being to me is presence. So, and in that moment of presence, awareness to it, I know that I feel most, I run a lot on feelings, and I feel most connected in awareness of the present moment. And to me, like that's in truth, I perceive physics wise, it's all that ever exists. Like it's just right now and right now and right now.
Yeah.
And that if I can be in that moment of presence, then there is like the most connection in relationship, the most connection to myself, the most connection to God, the most connection to, the experience of all of that all in one go. Whereas I lived a lot of my life in absence of the present moment, which then meant, down the track from that moment in time, I hadn't really been there. And, like things in, especially noticing all the things in my family that had passed. The my kids growing up and all that stuff, and how many moments I hadn't been in the moment, and therefore I didn't really have proper recollection of those things. I only had recollection of the moments, super special moments where I was truly there. Um, and even those weren't very, they were few and far between in relation to the life that I actually lived. So yeah, that's something which was a long term learning, but to be present in the moment now. Of late, um, one of my daughters has moved out, and one of my sons isn't home as much, and I have another daughter and son, and we've been sitting playing board or games of different types, and I've really been present to those moments, and just the connection and how special that feels, and I'm experiencing all those things in ways that I hadn't before. And so I perceive that opportunity is really what it comes down to for us in being, whether we're at work or at home, or in relationships with different people in different places. But on, for me, it would be on the golf course. If I'm on the golf course and I'm about to hit a golf ball, can I be present fully to this moment, like where I'm about to do this thing? And usually in that, the outcomes are all better, even on the golf course as well. So just an acknowledgement of simple things like that. In the middle of a sports game, if I'm not present to, hitting the ball in tennis, it's not going to be the outcome I want. And I kind of see that as the metaphor for each moment of my life, and then acceptance and allowing of what that moment is, rather than resistance to what that moment is. Because I notice all the places that I still don't want to be in that moment, in the place that I'm in, and that's the story. And yet it's the truth of where I'm at. So that's, acceptance of the present moment is all part of being also.
You said so many things that like triggered different thoughts for me, like different directions we could go with this. Because when I first got into the self-awareness world, realm, idea, I didn't, everybody kept talking about being present. I didn't have any idea what that meant. And
Mm.
one thing you said in there is you said it's an opportunity, which I equate to it's a choice you get to make, not that you have to make, that you get to make. But there was also something that you mentioned sports, and if you were um, present for golf and present, playing tennis. And it reminded me of when I first started rock climbing, and I didn't think I'd be able to rock climb. And I had undiagnosed ADHD for 45 years. And so I was always in the future or in the past. I was always depressed or anxious. I had no idea what it meant to be present. And I found that the only time my brain shut down and I could focus on exactly what I was doing was when I was rock climbing. And I don't have any idea why. And I haven't thought about it since then. It's been 20 years since I started rock climbing. And I'm like, I remember though, that was the only time that I could focus. And it could be because I was trying something new, or because, like you said, it was a moment that I wanted to be in because I found that I was better at it than I thought I would be. And so
Yeah.
I think defining not necessarily what presence is, but ways that we can get into presence is a huge, huge factor. It's a choice, it's an opportunity. What else is it? Like, what are ways that you get into presence or that you find that you automatically are in presence?
I still don't receive it as an automatic thing.
Okay.
It's something that I become aware of in, especially breathing.
Gotcha.
Like if I choose to be in the moment, I'll begin with a deep breath. Like and I read this awesome book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's written by a lady, and she talks about how a moment is literally a 90-second block of time. And
Okay.
that's how she lives her life, in the idea of moments. So every 90 seconds, and like the things that surround that 90 seconds of what's happening, what's our experience. So it's not like a single second. So when I do a deep breath, it's like then then I become present to this 90-second block of time. And I become aware of the energy of the person who's next to me, the the being that I am, how I'm holding my body, all the human behavior things of the state of being that we are. And the state of being is literally the energy that we're in the moment. And so in this moment of a 90-second block, if I begin with a deep breath and then I'm there, then it's a literal thing. I'm here. And so to be here now, Eckhart Tolle, his book, by being, there is the power of now is this 90-second block, and there isn't anything else. And the idea of the other things only exist in imagination. And maybe this moment only exists in imagination too, but I get to experience a beingness, like an energy that I feel I want to be, I'm bringing to the moment. And of late, bringing different energy to different moments, like has become something that I haven't tried to control so much. I've been listening to a man called Joe Hudson, who has a podcast called The Art of Accomplishment. And his way of coaching is to bring people into the present moment, and then their feelings around that moment. What's the signposts in their emotion of the moment, or of what their body is doing while they're in the moment? And only by becoming more aware of each of those things, and allowing myself to feel through feelings that before I would have resisted. And even if I'm in a moment where I want to resist the feeling of something, Joe says, can you love, if you can't love the moment or you can't love the feeling, can you love the resistance of the feeling? And so there's always an opportunity to expand ourselves into the next moment. Because obviously one 90-second block is going to become a different one. And depending on if in that 90 seconds we get back wrapped up in our mind, like what you're saying with ADHD stuff. I have experiences of that also. And so am I getting drawn back into my mind and imagination of future or past or what I should be doing? Like I guess it's becoming aware of all the things that I'm not being present to. So if I let my brain be drawn into story, then I'm not in my body.
Yeah, that's so, it's powerful. It made me think of, I remember when somebody told me the first time that the future isn't real and the past isn't real, that the only thing that's real is now. And I'm like, how can you say that? But somebody's like, well, the future never comes, because when you get to some point in the future, it's present and there's another future. Like the future is disappeared, it's gone. And the
Mm.
past, you can't go back to. It's not a space that you can go back to. That was a present moment that has gone by.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was really an interesting concept for me of, and like you said at the beginning, you were like, and now, and now, and now. Every moment, every second, however you defined it, is an opportunity and is a choice to pull yourself into presence and see who you are when you're present. I found for me, I am the most authentic when I'm present. And I didn't used to know what authentic was. I had no idea what being authentic was. It was, like you said, being who I should or doing what I should do. And it's almost like, I don't know if you feel this way too, but if I stop and I find that I'm in my thoughts, if I'm somewhere else and I pull myself into presence, then I can really hear what my mind or my body or my spirit or whatever is trying to say to me.
Yeah.
I think it's in those quiet moments that we figure out who we are.
Mm.
And for me, that was just life changing. That was life changing.
Yeah. And the thing which I noticed, so some of the podcasts where I watch Joe coach other people, it's amazing how he's bringing presence. His state of being is present fully, and he's taking notice of the slight eyebrow movement or the eyes up and down or side to side movement of are they remembering, are they whatever's going on for them in their mind as far as knowledge of human behavior. But like when we're looking up or to the side and we get lost in our mind, we're not actually in our body. So this is how the experience of the present moment is not in this imagination, not in this idea, which is when we're trying to think, when we're trying to be, trying like all those, or when we're in the future, imagination, or in the past, in our head, that's one thing. And what I love is in conversations with people is like, as someone comes into their body, especially coaching wise, like as someone comes into their body, they're getting a signal. So where the past has been trapped, like as an idea in our body, we actually can be with that then. And often there's many things from the experience of the timeline of our life that are locked in there. And so to actually meet with those leaves us as a different physical being rather than the idea of a different person. And it actually changes a person in the moment physically. And in that change, there's obviously a more consistent shift in behavior than in a brain change.
So you're speaking at like a cellular level, that it changes us, that that physical change where that's who you become is not who you think you should be or who you try and be, but it's who you Are you talking about authenticity right then?
It's who you act as,
Yeah,
subject to
thank you. Thank you.
the idea of yourself in your body. And you know how we all have the triggers that fire off when an event happens or something external is shown to us. In that trigger, like, how do I behave to that trigger? Is it real for now, or is it something that I experienced from the past, and it just gets pulled on because it's trapped in me? And I did that for most of my life. Like, and even now, at times, like, I love how you talk about doing it scared. Like, at times when the fears that arise, like, can I meet with that fear? And what does that have to teach me? Excuse me. And I don't even need to know the story of where it came from. All I need to know is that it's here in this part of my body. And if it's there, can I feel it now? And if it's something that I can be with, as far as I have the courage to be with, I have the courage um, to sit in, like a moment of fear, a moment of sadness, a moment of grief, like that then can pass through me, then there's automatically a different state of being that the idea of Ben is in the next moment, because until then I'd resisted that experience in my body.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, because that experience is allowed, I can be in with someone else while they experience that thing that I allowed in me, without it being a trigger for me any longer. So I'm literally a different being in that point and state of energy, because I'm not afraid of it anymore. And to me, resistance is fear. We don't want to feel it because it's going to hurt, because it's going to break our heart, because it's going to, bring up a different feeling of regret, of whatever. So
Right.
then it's sort of like a snowball. But if I can be with it all, if I can let the tears, the pain, some things are anguish when we've lost someone, or something that's important to us. To be able to grieve is the ultimate opportunity of human joy. Like, because if I have this grief stuck in me, then that's a draw on the extent to the joy that I can feel. And so it's, they're both ends of the spectrum of that emotion. And so it's all teaching me, in moving through all these things, that it's opportunity, like I said at the start. And that's the ultimate being, is in the moment, in all of the experience. And whether that requires vulnerability with someone else, or tears in front of other people, or it requires me to pull myself aside in anger that I don't want to take out on somebody else, but I want to feel through, even if it's about them. Like, I can be with that now. I can do that with me and feel safe with me, and trust me that on the other side of it, it's going to bring me more of what I desire to feel and more of what I want. So yeah, that's opportunity.
That whole process that you just talked about is beautiful. I mean, it's so hard to explain to people what that other side of it is, what that change, how you change so that you can do that. And it starts to be a natural part of you, that your body wants to do it. And not even consciously, subconsciously, because you don't stay in that anger or the frustration or the sadness or whatever. For me personally, I found that there was almost this, I don't want to say desire, but when feelings would start to come up that normally I would be like, I don't want to be with, I don't want to feel them for whatever reason, my body was like, no, 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 let's do this. Let's do this, because we know what it's like to let that go. And you're so much lighter. It is a difference. You are a different person. And it's
Yeah.
this miraculous thing that is so simple, such a simple process. Feeling comes up, sit with it, feel it, let it go. Not easy, not easy by any means. And so many people get stuck in this. I've mentioned before when I started working with Dave, my coach, a few months into this, I was like, he's a coach because he's learned how to do all this. He's got it figured out. Comes simple for him. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. He doesn't have to deal with any hardships or issues because he knows exactly what to do with them. And I happened to say that to him one time, and he very quickly was like, "Oh no, no. Like I'm still human. It still happens. Like I still deal with this." But you're right. I do know how to do it, and I have done it, and can be there for other people while they're doing it.
Yeah, I recall one of our conversations and being with you as you had the courage to do that. And it's such a honor to witness somebody else moving, like having the courage to go there, the bravery like that gets me a bit teary, because like that moment for any human being is the moment of transformation. Without the courage to go, to be vulnerable to ourselves, to trust that we're gonna come out the other side. Like in a chapter of a book that I wrote, the book's called Unlock Our Hidden Potential. Like it's like that there, there was a cave. That's it. There's a cave that we enter into, which is that darkness. And of late in my life, the idea of that has fully become that's a tunnel. And the moment like that we enter into a tunnel, I remember when I was in the darkest part of my life, I could not see the speck of light at the other end. Like it was pitch black, and I was in the pitch black in my body, and that's all I could feel. It's all I could see. It's all I knew. And while I was doing things in the world, this was my inner experience. And so in in those moments of fear about looking into the black, that was where I had to find courage that I was going to go there. But then that courage came through anger, because I needed an emotion to put me in the place of I must do this, and in the moments of my life where that became suicidal, that was one part of it. And at that time, I could not look at myself. I could not observe myself. I didn't know that was a thing. The ability to observe my emotions and be with my emotions came with openness to life. Whereas to end up at that place of darkness and not feeling, I had to close up and close up and close up, which also meant suppression of my feelings, which is, as Joe talks about so well, just like a constriction of my muscles. Everything I don't want to feel when I resist is a constriction of my physical muscles. And then if those constrictions are around the organs of our body, then the disease and other things which can arise from emotional things rather than physical things necessarily, because we are constricting. We're not breathing properly, so therefore our brain's not working properly. We don't have release of the movements of our body that are required for our body to function well, which, as a massage therapist, like in all those releases, there's more freedom. But when we resist the release and we don't want to go for the massage that's going to loosen our muscle because we know it's going to hurt, there's another metaphor for resistance to going through the tunnel of that thing. And so the idea of entering the darkness in trust that at the other end, even if it's pitch black at first, at some point I'm going to see the speck of light down in the distance. And at some point that's going to get big enough that then the darkness will be behind instead of in front of me. And I've literally experienced those things in my life. So the outcome of that is more expansion and more freedom, because we move through and then it becomes more open. So that's...
Oh my gosh, Ben, thank you for sharing that. Um, it made me think about my experiences in terms of before I was aware of coaching or self-improvement or self-aware, anything like that, right? When all I knew to do was to be a victim of everything that had happened to me throughout my entire life. And I was holding on to every little negative thought, negative word, never, if somebody had glanced at me wrong, and I had no idea I was holding on to it. And I had so many medical problems that are so known today, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I had epilepsy that they could not find a reason for, that I didn't start having seizures till I was 25. And they're like, we have no idea why you're having seizures. This is not normal. And, so many people are diagnosed with these autoimmune issues. And I found that in the last 3 years, since I started working with a coach and started really processing and, like you said, tapping in to what is inside of us and letting things release, processing, letting go, my fibromyalgia is almost completely gone. My chronic fatigue is almost completely gone. I haven't had a seizure in 2.5 years. It's just these health issues that nobody could figure out why they had them suddenly disappeared. And when you talk about your muscles tighten up and you're just chronically, and you talk about disease, which is dis-ease, if we break it up, which of course your organs are going to be in dis-ease if the muscles around them are being tight. It was amazing, that sense of freedom that came for me, being able to start running, being able to cold plunge, being able to, I had to give up my massage practice for a couple of years because my fibromyalgia was so bad. I could barely make it from my office to my bedroom every single day. And now I've got to practice again. And I mean, there's no limitations.
Yeah.
And but it's nothing that could be cured with a pill. It was something that I had to do because it was what my body was basically doing to itself physically through the emotional and energetic stuff that I was holding on to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's incredible how our bodies work. It's not just the blood flow. It's not just the muscle function and the spinal fluid. And it's not all of those things. There's such deeper layers to it when you think about how deeply your thoughts affect your movements, how your words affect how you feel. It's a miracle. I mean, these are amazing bodies that we have. And
Yeah, and our bodies have ways to suppress pain, right? Like their own way, its own way. And so unless I sit with myself and give permission for pain in my body, I don't have the capacity to meet with that pain. And so I'm unaware of it in that case. And so it's only when I allow myself to breathe, become present to my body, feel where the pain is, and then literally ask myself about that pain, and meet with whatever is creating it. So, for so much of my life, that was rage and anger. And because of the stories that I had of my life, it felt like it should be there. Like it made sense. But I still didn't want to feel it. So I would resist. And in my body wanting to express that, which for me actually ends up here, like the point of, because I haven't spoken what I needed to, because I felt injustice in myself, because I felt, as the victim idea, then everything would build in my throat. And so that incapacity to speak really limited me in my life. And as I could be with that more, my life expanded more. And as I could, set a boundary with a person who was doing behavior, at me or in my space that I wasn't okay with, until I could set that boundary, this is the experience that I would get over and over again. But I didn't know what that was until I could physically be with myself and ask myself about it or understand what that was. So, and then that would become like a headache and a migraine and everything else, because I was trying to constrict my throat. Don't speak. It's not okay to be angry. Like, you're going to hurt someone, you're going to destroy everything, all the stories that come with what anger is. And, there was times in my life where the drywall suffered, like things like that, even in the presence of my family, and not because of them, but because of what was in me. And then I had the shame, which followed those things, where in my house there was this hole in the wall that had just burst out, not at them, not like, but it was between me and the wall. But that destruction usually released something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had to take that and ask myself about it and be with the shame that came with the destruction. And then over time, like those places of anger left. And I just became able to be more with my anger and understand it and ask myself about it in the moving through process of life, rather than it compiling and compiling and compiling. To actually do that is like, it has to be a learned thing, or at least an understood thing that it's possible. Like, to love the resistance is to be with the uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
I was watching a YouTube thing the other night, and their merch is "Seek Discomfort." That's what is on all their clothing. And I was like, oh, these guys get it. And they travel around the world to all sorts of weird, and I think it was Yes Theory is the channel, but they just travel to all sorts of places that seem really scary to go to, and have the experiences of those places and meet beautiful human beings in those places because of the energy they bring into it, rather than going there in fear. And that's the metaphor of the whole of life, is like, I'm going to receive myself as I move through life, no matter what. And when that self of Ben was full of anger and rage and fear, I received a certain life. And then, like, over the time of allowing more and feeling more and being present, aware, the more I am actually receiving what I would like to.
It reminded me of, I was recording a podcast on somebody else's podcast last night, and it was actually a mother-daughter duo. And the mother was talking about something difficult that she had to go through, and she didn't want to, and she was scared and she was terrified. And it had to do with like meeting up with somebody else and having her life change in a way because of other circumstances that had happened. And so she said, I didn't know what to do, and I was too scared. And so I said, I need to go skydiving. And I was like, okay. And her daughter just was chimed in, and she's like, this is a woman who gets scared standing on a bridge and doesn't like going up ladders. And she told me she wanted to skydive. And I'm like, I wasn't quite sure where she was going. And I'm like, okay, all right. And but the woman said, I got up on this plane and the guy pushed me out. And she goes, it was the greatest thing. And I knew that once I had done that, that this other thing wasn't going to be as bad because I'd already done this. And I find, I mean, you and I talk about this often that you're like, just do it. Here, you know how to do it. You've been through scary things. Like, you know what this is, you know what it's about. Just meet it. Just meet yourself right there, whatever it is. There doesn't have to be a story around it. There doesn't have to be a reason for it. I get caught up in the why. I'm like, why is this happening? There doesn't have to be a why. It it just is.
Mm.
And once you can meet yourself, that's part of where my do it scared comes from is once you step forward into that fearful thing, once you step forward into the cave, into the tunnel, and you just take one more step, and then you take one more step, and you keep moving forward. And it's such a beautiful thing to
Yeah,
watch people transform, but to watch yourself become whatever you're meant to become. And I
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
I just was thinking about what you were saying, and the vision that I received was, when you look at a black sky at night, and you can't at first you can't necessarily really see the stars, but the more you focus, like the more you stare, the more spots of light appear, and it's like that's something which happens for us as a human if we look into the sky. So is that all that it is? Like the capacity to be with the darkness, to look into it, knowing that if we're a light as a human being, the darkness cannot hurt us. But there's a perception that it will. And in the fear, we're held back from everything. Not anything else. Like there isn't. Yeah, watching people do brave things just lights me up. And my experience of being brave as myself, is the most fulfilling thing for me.
I have a client right now, and I've talked about this a couple of times, but she came to me knowing that her hang up was money. She doesn't want to spend money. She has this fear of running out of money. And but she knew about coaching, knew what it was, and came to me and said, "What would be your cost for coaching? Like what would you charge me?" And so I just told her. And she texted me back and said, it just that just makes me want to like throw this out to window and not even worry about it, like not even try and do this. And I texted her later and I said, do you see that your brain is telling you you don't want to spend money to get help with your issue of not wanting to spend money? And she texted me back later and she's like, I've been thinking about that all day. And she's like, yeah, I need to step into this. So we started working together, and the very first thing I said is we need to know what your issue with money is. Like, what is your fear around it? What is your trepidation? And so she listed off all these things and I wrote every single one of them down. And I said, now you're going to feel it. And she said, what do you mean? I said, you're going to put your feet on the floor. You're going to grip the arms of your chair and I'm going to repeat back to you every single thing that you told me and more. That to you is terrifying. And you're going to sit right there and you're going to feel it. And I'm going to be right here. Nothing's going to happen. But your feelings are coming up for a reason because they want to be felt. And we push them down because we're taught, because we think that's what right, like whatever it is, we push them down, just like you said. And we sat there for quite a while and she is bawling. And there's a whole process, the process I'm speaking of. But there's a whole process. And I just kept telling her, your husband lost his job. You're getting kicked out of your house. You don't have any food in the cupboard. And then after it was over, she was able to feel him. She stopped crying. I said, what changed? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, look around you. What changed? You still have your home. Your husband still has his job. Your daughter's doing just fine. There's food in the cupboard. There's money in the bank account. What changed? It was just a feeling. That's all it was. And it's a fear of something that's going to happen. And you are starting to teach your nervous system right now that just because you feel that doesn't mean it's going to happen. and that it's nothing to be scared of. And it
Yeah.
was just this transformation, like this light bulb went off in her head. And I'm like, this isn't really about money. This is about insecurities that you have that have come out throughout your experiences in life, and they've been put toward money. Like you said, yours was put into anger. Hers is directed to money. And now she's learning that the more we dig deep in her and start peeling away the layers of the onion of her relationship with money is changing without even thinking about it. Our last session, we've been working together for a couple of months. In our last session, she was like, "Oh, we ordered these new cell phones, and I was like, were they expensive?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "How did you feel about buying them? About spending that money?" She's like, "I didn't even think about it." I said, "Yeah, that's the work. That's the work right there." And it's
Yeah.
hard and it's vicious and it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's life changing.
Yeah. And I love, just for the benefit of anyone watching, it's like, I remember sitting with Cari while she did that, while she met with those feelings, while she bawled her eyes out, while you did that. And then the capacity for you to sit with someone else in their fear, the capacity for you to do it scared, like all of those things that eventuate or are created because your being is different, your capacity to be with someone else is different. And for them to feel safe while they are with you. That's the thing. If I can't be with something that my client brings to me, or a friend brings to me, I will close them down before they get the chance to experience that thing. But if I've been with it, there's a space that they can be in while they experience themselves. And that's the opportunity we are. That's the black sky that we are, and as people look into us, do they see more and more stars? Or are we a dark space that's not safe? Are you the candle? Like that's our opportunity as a human being.
Incredible. That's an incredible way to think about that. I love it. And I want to say this on the show. There's been more than one time that you've done that for me. And you have been an amazing example to me for the years that we've known each other of doing this. And so I really want to thank you for all the work that you've done on you so that you can be that candle and you can be that light for other people. Thank you for sharing it in the book. I mean, you and I, we were in the same book. We each got to write a chapter of the same book of A Journey of Riches, Unlocking Your Hidden Potential. And that was an amazing experience to get to understand you on a deeper level and what you have been through in terms of the work you've done on yourself and how that cave has turned into a tunnel. And so I have to thank you because without you, I don't know if I fully would have been able to do this for my client.
I appreciate your appreciation, and I appreciated your courage and your bravery, because it, even if we have experienced things, even if we allow ourselves to go through things, in the witness of seeing someone else do it, there is an inspiration to do the next thing, and to meet with the next, to walk through the next tunnel, because this is what life is going to bring, like opportunity to choose to go into the tunnel or to try and climb the mountain, to navigate ourselves around that thing, which is such a longer journey to the thing we want and the truth of our being. And sometimes we got to take the mountain, and sometimes we can choose the tunnel. It's like that hero's journey of adventure. like being able to be with uncertainty. And another mentor of mine, Joe Pane, he has a group called the Emotional Fitness Group, and his idea in that group, or the basis of it, is emotional fitness is our level of capacity to be with uncertainty. So the more we can be with uncertainty, the more emotionally fit we are. The less we can be with uncertainty, the more emotional, like, unfit we are. And so if we have emotional unfitness, we can't be with uncertainty. Therefore, we can't be with our family. We can't be with our children. We can't be with, the difficult conversation that we've got to have with someone. Like, all of those things show up. And so it is the space that we live from, whether we like it or not. The other Joe Hudson, he talks about how if we come, I just totally lost my train of thought, but it's in the emotional capacity that we hold, like, the expansiveness of our life comes. And I just am honored to have sat with you in those times when you've chosen to be brave and courageous, and with anyone that has allowed me to do that. Anyone who's dead entered into that space in my presence. And I love that. That's the thing. Like I said, because I know it fulfills me for myself, I also receive joy in the witness of that for others.
Tell us where people can get a hold of you if they want to reach out and have a conversation about any of this with you.
Probably I'm not really on social media at the moment, so just an email, which is ben@benwelch.co. That's my email.
And for anybody listening to this or watching the video, I couldn't recommend Ben to be somebody to witness anything you're going through more. I have seen Ben in some of his difficult times, and I've seen who he's become and is continuing to become. And I also know I can't even express the changes that have happened in me from him seeing me in my times. So if you want to reach out to Ben, reach out to Ben. The conversations, I guarantee you, will be powerful. And
I think the best thing is that I trust in the answer that you have in you. And that's it. My life used to be about trying to save other people. Like, I just had this drive to save other people. And that was wrapped up in needing to save myself, or the idea of that. And in the journey of moving through things, I still haven't moved through my whole life. Like, how much of my life is there to go? A lot, I hope. But that, and each of those things is going to bring something else to me, because otherwise I kind of think my life might end if I ran out of those things. And so that's the opportunity that I have, looking into anything that might be a future, and also seeking to be the student of being in the present. Like, I want to be in now, and now, and now, and now. And thank you for your conversation.
thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate your time, Ben. So everyone, any questions about Bean, you can always reach out to me. You can shoot Ben an email. Just amazing conversation. I hope everybody was able to really feel the energy that was here. And anything else, as we close that you would like to say?
Hmm. I was going to say no, but I feel like there is something. Breathe, I think.
Mm.
Like even if there's nothing else you can do in the most difficult moments, in like scientifically, if you breathe, if you hold your breath, you get like 7 times dumber in 0.3 seconds or something. You know, it's like
Interesting.
your brain capacity in not having oxygen sends a whole bunch of hormones to your brain. Shut. Do you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden you're in survival, and
Very,
so
very true.
you don't have the space to be free, to be present. And so, like, just take a second to breathe and see what comes to mind.
Such a great reminder. Thank you, Ben. Thanks again for your words today. We appreciate it. Everyone, this
Okay.
has been our episode today. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Love y'all.